other areas of the American economy. We're seeing it right now as about 60% of all oil globally is consumed for fuel, which means that 40% of it goes to other things. Many of those products you might not even expect. Some could be obvious, like the plastic in your smartphone, or certainly containers and packaging for sunscreen and moisturizer. But did you know that fertilizer contains some fossil fuel? So produce at the grocery stores, even grains that are used for the chickens that produce eggs, all of that is impacted by higher oil prices. Even the glasses that you wear, the components of that do contain some petroleum-based derivatives. So Americans right now are really experiencing this in full, not just at the pump, but when they go to the grocery store, when they go to the electronics store. And as the trucks deliver all of these items, here's another layer to all of it. They're generally diesel powered. Regular fuel right now is at a record of $4.25 a gallon. Diesel, for comparison, as at $4.80. There are so many dimensions to all of this. American consumers right now really paying the price across the board.
News 10 NBC on the radio. Weekdays at 5 a.m., noon, 5, 6, and 11 on the WYSL stations.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right. Us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
That is right. We are live on A Free Solution, WYSL, WACK in Newark. My name is Craig Miles. Happy to be with you here on this Wednesday noon, soon to be afternoon. And if you tuned in before I started to talk, the big news. Everybody's talking about it. Gas prices. How are we going to get rid of these horrible gas prices? It costs so much, and you got inflation, and everything we use is made of oil, or in order to get it where it's got to go, you need a lot of oil. And now we just stopped buying oil from Russia. So now it's like 100 times more expensive. My point is we've known this for a long time. We've known this since the 70s. Since before that we are super reliant on oil. Okay, so there's a couple things you can do about that. You can decrease your dependence on oil. You can decrease your dependence on foreign oil to make sure that you control the oil that you do use. Or you could say, you know what? I'm tired of this oil. It's time to find something else. And we've done that over and over again. We had foot power, and then we had horsepower, and then we had steam power. We also had canals for a while. Those were before the railroads. Then we had the railroad steam power, and then we got gasoline. So the new cool thing is electric vehicles. But even that ties us back to fossil fuels at the moment, because a lot of our electricity is produced by fossil fuels. So we need a different solution. Nuclear is one of those solutions, but a lot of people are scared about that. Especially now we're going to get in a hot nuclear war with Russia. People say it makes people a little hesitant to have nuclear power. So what is the answer to all of this stuff? Well, if you watched Uncle Joe's State of the Union address, buy American, and punish Russia. I don't know if that's the solution, Uncle Joe, but a lot of people clapped for it. And I don't have a problem with buying American. The issue is in the next breath, he said, and that's going to lower costs. That's not going to happen. If you're going to buy American, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to raise the cost, which is fine because that money is staying here. It's fine in the long run. In the short run, it's going to sting. But now we have massive inflation anyway. So maybe local is more competitive. Maybe American is more competitive. And I've got a notification here that my sound is echoing, so I don't know if that's on my end or if that's on the radio station's end. But I apologize. Maybe that's something we can take care of after the break. But as long as you can stand the echo, just keep listening, because there's important things to say. And maybe you can comment, call in 585-346-3000, or comment. I'm keeping track of the chat. Keeping track of the chat here.
So the other situation might be that maybe we have to go and become more reliant on local stuff. Maybe Buy American isn't far enough. Maybe we have to go to Buy Rochester, Buy New York, Buy, New York City. Maybe if stuff doesn't have to come from 1,500 miles away, now it's not, now it's not delayed when we have lockdowns. And all of a sudden, I'm not allowed to transport, or truckers, they revolt in Canada. If I get my produce from the guy down the street, or if I get my hamburger from the guy down the street, that doesn't have anything to do with me. At the same time, if I get my oil from America, I don't have to worry about what Putin's doing. So it's not just rah team. We can be proud of making these things and getting these things here. It's actually practical, because just like with federal funds or state funds or anything like that, there's always strings. When you put someone else in charge of something, when you become reliant on something else, then it disappears. Now there's leverage against you. So with the feds, they give you all this funding, and then they say, if you don't, play by our rules, there goes the funds. And this happened with DeSantis down in Florida. I don't know the details, but essentially the CDC or the feds had asked him to track COVID data of some sort. He says, I'm not doing that. Get out of here. And the fed says, oh yeah, well, we're going to fine you $5 million you don't get. And meanwhile, they printed 30 trillion. What is $5 million? Nothing. And that was Ron DeSantis's point. He's like, okay, $5 million. I specifically did not follow what you said, and my state is booming. I made up $5 million times 100. So I don't care about your money. And that's where you got to get with everything, with food, with energy, with all that stuff. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do, because it doesn't affect me. I'm going to do my own thing. And I was keeping track of the comments when I shared the post teasing this. And someone made the comment about parallel economies, parallel structures. Yes, parallel. You need to build parallel structures and different options that don't rely on foreign oil, that don't rely on Uncle Joe, that don't rely on Aunt Kathy. And it boils down to community, which is what we always used to have. This world that we're living in right now, although it is similar to what we've had for many, many, many thousands of years, is really different. In the past 100, 150, 200 years, this is an experiment, all based on fossil fuels. So to take the entire history of the human race and just kind of push it aside and be like, no, the fossil fuels, that's the right way to live. After it's been 10,000 years of one way, no, this 200 years is the right way. Well, maybe we're starting to realize it's not. Maybe localizing things is not necessarily the worst thing to do. I'm kind of in that boat. I subscribe to a CSA, a community supported agriculture, during the summer. I get my vegetables from there. And this year, they're starting to introduce meat into that as well as local maple syrup and milk and stuff like that. And then it doesn't matter if the truckers ship iceberg lettuce from California, because now I have escarole that I can make my Utica greens with right here from the next town over. And it's the same idea with the oil. Regardless of whether you think oil is the answer or not, it's indisputable that it would be better for us to use the oil here than from abroad, because you don't have to ship it as far. You don't have to burn all of the fossil fuels to get it here. It's all a game of weighing things. weighing the impacts. And people say, well, we can't drill on the federal lands here. We can't do this. We can't do that because it'll hurt the environment. Okay, are you talking about the localized environment in wherever you're drilling, or are you talking about the environment as a whole? Because we just entered into these Paris Climate Accords again, and I thought that was all about reducing the overall production of CO2. And if that's the case, wouldn't oil from Texas pumped in a pipeline have less of an effect on the environment as far as CO2 emissions go than oil shipped on a ship from Russia or from Saudi Arabia? Yes, it would be better for the environment in that aspect. And we also wouldn't be reliant on Putin or whoever's in charge over in the Middle East. It insulates us from that. Same with the food. Same with our transportation. We have all this federal money going into the Traffic Highway Administration, and we got to build the roads, and we got to fund the infrastructure. How did people get around in 1900? How did that happen? we didn't have an interstate highway system. Okay, it took a little bit longer, but we had roads. Now I sound like the stereotypical libertarian. Oh, the roads. But it's true. There's a way to fund roads publicly at the local level. Maybe we don't even need roads. I'll get into that after the next break about, cars aren't the only way that you can get around. Unfortunately, they've kind of become the only way over the past 50, 60, 70 years. But there are other alternatives. And as the price of oil skyrockets, and as you have Uncle Joe or Trump or anybody responsible, at least partially for gas prices, then they what they do matters to you. If you decouple yourself from all that federal stuff and all the gas prices, now you're a little bit insulated. We'll get into the specifics on WYSL, WACK, a free solution. Thank you for tuning in. Give me a call, 585-346-3000. Be right back after the break.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your couch? Call 555-OUCH.
It's kind of cute watching that injury attorney buying breakfast for a crash test dummy, but while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes
Okay, we have a caller. His name is Charles the Gardener.
Gets 100% of his attention.
That's what he wants to go as. Yeah, Charles the Gardener, and he's from Rochester. All right.
Right.
He wants to talk about alternative fuel.
585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're no dummy. Get individual attention and
yeah, I know it's some of the posts on Facebook have been kind of funny, like people saying, "Hey, I got gas for $2.49 at Taco Bell."
personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents,
And then I saw a picture of a woman in, like a harness racing sulky with a dog pulling her down the road. And she said, this is how I'm going to get around from now on.
Seat at a concert, a game, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service.
Oh, wow. Which track?
Where they too can create their own cherished memories.
Okay, cool.
Tix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
Yeah, we have Batavia Downs just, about 30 minutes to the west of where I live. But yeah, I'm familiar with harness racing.
Rushmore style, our 4 worst presidents. Of course, you know who's front and center.
Matter of fact, right in my town, there's a half-mile harness racing track where they train horses in Avon. It's called the Avon Driving Park.
Produced and sold only in the WYSL store at WYSL10.
Stand by.
A free solution.
We are back on a free solution, WYSL, WACK in Rochester and in Newark. And the echo is fixed for those of you listening online. I apologize for that. That was entirely my fault. So tell all your friends the echo is fixed and tell them to come back. Again, apologize for all that. I was speaking before the break about alternatives to the system that we have right now. And basically, it could be any alternative, honestly, because $5 gasoline, that messes with stuff real bad. So do we need alternative fuels? Do we need, alternative transport? Do we need an alternative economy that's more localized? I think we might need all of these things in different measures. And you can't mandate it. You got to show that it makes sense. And as this system continues to collapse around us, at least at the moment, now these things that seem kind of crazy are like environmental, it's just those crazy tree huggers or whatever. Now, well, maybe they start to make a little bit of economic sense. I have a call. I piqued his interest, apparently. It's Charles the gardener from Rochester. What's going on, Charles?
How you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
Okay. I'm good. Okay. So there's always been an alternative fuel. It's been around since Ford built his cars. The only problem is the Democrats don't want it and the Republicans don't want it. I'm referring to the politicians, not the voters. And it's hemp fuel. There's a book out there. It's called Emperor Wears No Clothes, and it was, I don't know, I think it was written in the late 70s. And he even has a bet on the back of the book of if you can prove any of his theories wrong, he'll give you $100,000. Now he's been passed on long since then. But anyways, the story of the book is everything that oil can produce, hemp can produce. And so you're talking about milk jugs, your typical water jugs. And it's hemp because it would degrade a lot quicker than oil.
Yes, you're 100% correct. Thomas Jefferson grew hemp. Washington grew hemp. We made sails out of hemp. We made ropes out of hemp. Hemp was where it was here. And then you got vested interests. You got the oil industry. You got the paper industry, the forestry industry. You got all of these people that make a lot of money off of things that hemp would knock off of the pedestal. They said, hang on, guys. Can't we find a way to demonize this? You know what? It's reefer madness. Yeah, if you smoke that stuff, you're going to go crazy and kill people. And I'm not lying about that. You can go to Johann Hari, Chasing the Scream. He talks about the drug war and where it comes from. Prohibition ended, and essentially 2 seconds later, we decided, well, we got all these people that used to chase people for alcohol. What are they going to do now? I don't know, chase people for pot or heroin or things like that. And so it's all mixed together. It's the war on drugs. It's the war on alternatives. It's all to help vested interests. And they tell you it's for your best interest. It's not. It's not for your best interest at all. Are you familiar with any of that, Charles?
Oh, I know. I know everything that you're talking about.
Yeah.
but the sad thing about the whole thing is, an acre of hemp can do the same as an acre of trees. But I've also looked into it. Is you can build hemp wood that is stronger than your typical lumber.
Yep. Yeah,
all it is just kind of compressed.
Yep.
But
yeah, it's just like
the reason why I'm sorry, what?
It's just like oak. It's just as strong as oak.
Yeah. The reason why I say the Democrats don't, the politicians do not want to use it is because it would take away from their global climate, I don't know, their little pandemic, always been happening, climate change. It would take away from that because it takes the carbon dioxide a lot quicker than the trees do. I mean,
yeah. You're 100%. You're 100% correct. Everyone wants carbon capture technology. We got to get the carbon monoxide out of the air, the carbon dioxide out of the air. We gotta catch it and put it in a coal mine and bury it. No, all you have to do is grow a lot of hemp, and then it takes the CO2 and turns it into hemp wood or into hempcrete or into any of these things. And you're 100% correct about the left not wanting to fix this. It's the same issue with nuclear energy. If I fix the problem, and this isn't only the left, you nailed it when you said it was the government. Everybody has these things, these wedge issues that they complain about, and they have been for the past 50 years. And have they changed anything? No, they haven't. Because if they change something and they actually fix the problem, now I can go about my life and I don't have to worry, and I've just put myself out of a job.
And there's
because
no money
I can't
in
talk about. Say again?
I just said, and there's no money in that if you fix the problem.
No, not. Well, there is money in it, but not for them. Right? There's many.
Well, yeah.
There's money in it. Go ahead.
Well, even with like hemp and the medical industry, look how far we've gone to fight just to get medical marijuana just to be used. All those people that suffered before then when there was evidence. It just, so yes, there is alternative fuel, but it's all regulated by the government, so we can't get it. But I'm sorry, there is hemp gas stations, just not in our area.
Really? Where are they?
That I don't know. They're just not in New York.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. No, I'm going to start to go down that road where you talked about no money in it. There's no money in it for the vested interest, but there's plenty of money for Charles the gardener that wants to grow hemp on his acre, or for anybody else that. Yes, and you're democratizing the process, and you're letting people do what they want to do. And if you don't have them tied to oil, or you don't have them tied to whatever system it is that you control, now I don't control them. And this is why Larry's policy about regulate it like onions is so important, because you should not be legalizing hemp. You should not be legalizing cannabis. You should be decriminalizing it and allowing people to do whatever they want with it, instead of writing regulations about how to use it and writing regulations about who's allowed to who cares? Let people grow it, let people process it. And there's already laws on the books to take care of things like, any issues that you would have with liability, or any issues that you would have with addiction. You don't have to go and create a war on drugs. You already have the legislative framework there to take care of any problems that would come as a result of growing hemp, which are none, honestly.
Except for the food industry. I mean, they make a lot of money.
Yeah, they make a lot of money. And well, you nailed it, the pharmaceuticals. It's funny, I learned this about Hearst, the newspaper guy. He owned a bunch of forests to cut down to make paper for his papers, but then would also sell pulpwood and things like that. And hemp came along, and that was going to threaten William Randolph Hearst. And he had a hand in demonizing the hemp. He says, I make too much money off of forestry. Why do we want this hemp stuff? And that's the story of everything. Any new technology is always attacked. I talked about canals earlier. Railroads, when they first came in, all the canal people said, no, we can't have this. All the stagecoach people said, we can't have this. I won't be able to sell oats and hay and all this stuff. So this is not a new story. This stuff has been going on for centuries, for millennia. All we have to do is try to find a way to exist outside of that system, and they can't possibly control everything. So it's a matter of building parallel structures and trying to move in a different direction than the ways that the vested interests are going.
Yeah, which, to be honest, and I am one of those tree huggers. You know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm smart. I'm more of a Trump Republican, but I'm not. You know, I was always part of the Green Party because I am a tree hugger, but I'm not. I think logically. You know, and we need gas, but I've always looked at gas as oil, as Mother Earth excrements. That's the way I look at oil. You know, it's Mother Earth. It was like, what do I do with all this crap? And that's what we're digging out of the earth, I believe. And we're sticking it in the air.
Charles, I'm right there with you. I would consider myself a tree hugger as well, but not one of those crazy lefty tree huggers. It's a solution that I'm looking for. A free solution. Thanks for the call, Charles.
You're welcome. Bye.
We will be back after the break with a little bit more about all of this stuff. Call me up like Charles the Gardener did on WYSL WACK, a free solution. We'll be back after the break.
Yeah, by the way, I know Walt Disney World uses biodiesel, I believe, on most of their buses.
Celebrating 35 years.
WYSL.
Yeah, and
FM Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
yeah, are you familiar with Schwann's home food delivery service? Okay, well, the Schwann's Corporation back in the 70s retrofitted all their trucks to run on propane, and they still do to this day.
Weather day Friday, clouds increase, could be some snow Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they all do still to this day, but yeah, because I get Schwann's grocery delivery, and I took a 9-year hiatus from radio when my first wife tried to make me who she thought I should be, and I worked as a wholesale grocery distributor for Schwann's, representing Tony's, Freshetta, and Red Baron, and even the Tony's pizza trucks, which were large, like 18 and 15-foot trucks, they ran on propane. This is back, I'm talking back in the 90s, but, and the interesting thing about propane-powered vehicles, you can get several 100,000 miles out of an engine because it burns so clean.
At 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
MGM Associates Insurance, proudly serving the region since 1984. MGM can meet your coverage.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Home, condo, and auto, all the way to specialized policies for business, workers' comp, to limo and taxi insurance, and coverage for tech professionals like IT specialists. They can also help lead you through the confusing maze in the new world of health insurance coverage and options. MGM Associates is large enough to serve you, but small enough to care, so you don't have to wait in line on some 800 number to get prompt personal attention. MGM Associates is the only winner of the National Best Practices.
Interestingly enough, when I left my first wife, when I was single, I dated a girl back, and this is going back 18 years ago or more. She worked at the fuel cell plant in Honeywell Falls for GM.
Or MGM,
and she had a company car, and it was one of those EV9s. Yeah, and so they still had some of them floating around, and the employees at the GM plant in Honeywell Falls had them as company cars. And I rode with her in it several times, and it was a really neat car, and it had, as part of the system, it had regenerative braking. So when you hit the brakes actually were a generator that would, put a charge to the battery. So it was always one way or the other trying to charge itself, even when you braked.
Bump outs, garages with the best in materials and workmanship, over 30
And that-
years of reliable, ethical experience anywhere in the region. Now's the perfect time
Yeah.
to get your important project underway.
But it's really sad, though, what happened with that. As you probably know, there's a whole documentary about what killed the electric car.
At ChamberlainConstruction.com.
I don't know if you ever saw it.
LIN.
Oh, look at, you might find it on Amazon Prime or Netflix or something, but just search what killed the electric car, and it's a rather interesting documentary. I'll leave it at that.
If you need a pickup, load up a 2022 Chevy Silverado for just $369 a month for 39 months. These lease deals include returning lessee rebates, factory rebates, incentives, and discounts that apply. Security deposit is waived. 10,000 mile allowance per year, 25 cents each additional mile. Must have lease and household. Tier 1 credit approval required. Lessee responsible for repair and maintenance. Conditions apply. Get details at dealer. Now, if you're looking for a quality used vehicle, Victor Chevrolet has a selection that can't be beat anywhere in the region. And be sure to trust your vehicle to our Chevy certified service department. Victor has special savings and rebates on tires, shocks, and struts.
Yeah, she was a nice gal, but at the time she was not interested in having a family, and I wanted to have a family, and we went our separate ways. But like I said, it was a really neat car to ride in, and just for whatever it's worth, check in the documentary. It's I don't want to do any spoilers, but it will tell you a lot of things about the gas industry and everything else.
7520 to register. Rides may be available. Again, 243-7520.
A free solution.
Right, you're on.
We are back with a free solution on WYSL, WACK in New York. Speaking with my board op back at the station and talking about alternative fuels and how they're nothing new, and we've been doing this for a long time, but it's just the chokehold that big gas has on us. And speaking of that, Raw Mean comments, huge gas is bad. I'm not sure if he's making a pun there or not, but thank you for the comment. So what do? Well, we make alternatives. Electric vehicles. Pete Buttigieg, he says, if you hate the high gas tax or the high gas prices, just go buy EV. Just go buy an electric vehicle. Which, okay, Pete, Mayor Pete, he might be the most tone-deaf politician that I know of, by the way. Not a big Pete Buttigieg fan, only because of that. Because he seems like he's very insulated. He seems like he checked a lot of boxes. And I don't think he's in touch with the American people at all. Just go buy an electric vehicle. Okay, maybe that's a good answer in 20 years when the price is down and we've started to move away from oil, and maybe, but right now, Pete, that is not an answer. That's not what I want to hear. He's like, you poors, you just don't have enough money. But electric vehicles are not a bad thing. We're not there yet as far as affordability. Tesla's done a lot, and now Ford and Chevy are hopping on. And that's when you know that the tide is changing, because Ford and Chevy are basically arms of the government at this point, with all of the regulations that they have to meet as far as safety features and emission standards and all of these things. They work together to make the cars the way that the government wants them. And that's why a Chevy Cruze looks the same as a Ford Focus, and vice versa, and all these things. You don't see as much variety in cars anymore. Cars aren't quote unquote sexy anymore because it's all regulated by the government. So the fact that Ford and Chevy are hopping on the electric vehicle train now shows me That's where the government is going. So in 20 years, Mayor Pete recommending an electric vehicle, that might be a solution. But for right now, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the money. Also, the electric entrance to your house, all of these things. Like, we need a huge update of the grid to go all electric, which is fine. We can move in that direction. Okay, so how do we power it? Do we do it with renewables? Do we do it with solar, wind, hydroelectric? Well, they all have their drawbacks. The sun only shines every once in a while. The wind in some places blows all the time, so that's a good thing. Hydroelectric is actually not as clean as you would think, because when you go and you flood all these valleys, they don't remove the organic matter. They don't remove the trees, the plants, and all this stuff. It's left to decay at the bottom of the lake, which produces methane gas, which is a whole lot worse as a greenhouse gas than CO2 is. So even hydroelectric, if you're damming for hydroelectric, is not as clean as you would have thought. Nuclear energy, that's pretty clean. But then you have situations like Fukushima and Chernobyl way back 30 years ago that make people hesitant about that. Honestly, anyone looking for an electric solution to our situation who is overlooking nuclear power is not looking at the whole picture, either on purpose or they just haven't discovered yet that that is a viable solution. There is Gen 4 nuclear right now. With our current stock of uranium, as well as this new element that they're using, thorium. I don't think they built any thorium reactors yet. The point is, we have literally millions of years worth of energy in our nuclear stockpiles as we speak. And nuclear is a whole lot safer than it ever thought of being 30, 40, 50 years ago when we had the crises, the meltdowns at Chernobyl and then 3 Mile Island. My point in saying all of this is nuclear is definitely a solution. And building nuclear here in the States is a whole lot better than shipping oil from Russia. The other situation is localization. So if you move away from how you get around to, well, maybe I don't have to get around so much because I can produce the stuff here and it doesn't have to come in a ship or on a train or in a truck. That's the other half of the equation. And we had this already. I'm going to read a passage. It's called The Long Emergency is the book. It's by James Howard Kunstler, who I had the opportunity of seeing speak in Utica a few years ago. And he's a very interesting fella, if you want to check him out. But before we had cars, before we had buses, before we had over-the-road trucking, we had railroads and we had trolley cars. And according to James, you were able to take a trolley from Boston to Wisconsin. Not all on the same trolley, obviously, and you had to do all these changes. There were 2 20-mile sections, he says, in upstate New York somewhere where you couldn't do that. So you would have had to take a stagecoach or a car or, whatever. The point being, you didn't need to take a bus. You could go on the rail. And these rail systems, the light rail systems, they don't require a big a road bed or anything like that. So I'll read the excerpt here. It says, I gotta back up actually. Between 1880 and 1930, the major cities of America grew to a scale that had never been seen before. New York, Chicago, and Detroit came to represent a futuristic urbanism of immense megastructures, including both office towers and vast horizontal facades like Ford's River Rouge plant. So big development in the cities. You're seeing that now in some cities. Down in the South, New York City is losing residents. And why is that? Well, New York is protecting the old money. We don't have cool new things. Elon Musk moved to Texas. Well, I know it was Texas. I don't remember if it was Austin, Houston. but he left California. You're going to start seeing meccas. And Uncle Joe said we had to change the Rust Belt into the whatever he said. He meant to say the Rust Belt into the Green Belt or something like that, but he fumbled the ball. The answer to that, if you want to turn the Rust Belt into the Green Belt, let people do stuff. Don't keep going with the same old nonsense. Start thinking locally. Start allowing people to think locally instead of having to follow all these federal regulations or all these state regulations. Allow people to make decisions. Allow people to grow hemp. Allow people to build trolley systems. These are all answers that do not require someone in Washington to tell you what to do. They don't require oil from Saudi Arabia or Russia. They require you and your family and your community to rely on each other. Community supported agriculture, local farming. And this works for the big producers and it works for the government. When you have 4 meat packers that all the meat has to go through, now they make all the money. And if I grow cattle out in South Dakota, I got to send it to those meat packers and I got to pay the price they want. It's like it's a Wonderful Life, paying the kind of rent he asked for that slum. Mr. Potter. Yeah. Mr. Potter is that evil meat packer. He's that supermarket chain, or Walmart in this case, with food. If I cut out the middleman and the farmer now can sell to, all the people in his community, now Mr. Meatpacker, Mr. Potter, he is out of luck. Benjamin comments. He says, nobody ever mentions how much fuel is used and sometimes wasted with air traffic. And Benjamin is right here. When we locked down 2 years ago, this is another case of the feds controlling an industry. Just like I talked about how they control the auto industry, they also control air traffic. The Federal Aviation Administration, who, by the way, I don't know if you remember this or not, but 5G, do you remember 3 months ago or so where the FAA was like, wait a minute, this 5G thing, that's going to hurt the planes. They can't, we got to stop this 5G. It's like, FAA, hello, where have you been? That's literally the only conversations, or the only ads, rather, that I've seen on my television for the past 5 years. And you just figured out maybe it's bad for planes? How incompetent. Back to the point, though, about wasting fuel with air travel. Yes, we had planes flying. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to a shop or travel to a country or a state or a city because it was locked down to travelers. But we had to keep flying the planes because the airlines needed to do something. They get so much subsidization from the federal government. They are so in bed with the federal government. These airlines are essentially an arm of the government, a wing of the government, if you will. So they needed their money. And the government says no one can travel. Well, if I'm an airline company, I'm kind of upset about that. I say, well, you got to give me... okay, I got to take a minute here. Demography Now comments, this is totally cringeworthy. These Lolbert takes are the worst ever. I would challenge you, Demography Now. What is your solution? I'm happy to hear it. And maybe he'll give me that after the break on WYSL WACK in Newark. Thank you for listening. And perhaps we will hear from Demography Now after the break.
Why do businesses choose to move their website?
Yeah, bottom line is they're in bed with the government.
Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution.
Oops, are you there?
Perhaps they just like the fact that
Oh,
SimpleTech
I don't know if
is
you
a
heard what I
local
just
small
said.
business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're
Yeah, and
hands-on
you know,
and love
when you talk
helping
about
customers achieve
trolleys,
their
back in the
goals. But don't
day,
take my word for it. They've won the best in
many
Rochester 8 years
amusement
in a row
parks,
and have
classic
an
parks
A+
like
Better
Seabreeze
Business
in
Bureau rating.
Rochester,
If your website
and even
doesn't
Coney
match your
Island
ratings or isn't achieving your
were
goals, give
known
the
as trolley
professionals at
parks.
SimpleTech
Coney Island
Innovations
really
a call
was
today
more
for a
of a
consultation
a
at
subway park, if you will. The elevated train or subway. But in places like Rochester, even Erie, PA, Waldemere Park, a lot of those parks were located at the end of the trolley line, and the trolley companies were looking for a way to make money on weekends.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Each person in the office made me feel
So,
nice
Not only am I completely
yeah,
happy
so,
with this,
you know, once
but I feel
again,
you've
it
been
was
this way all my
the
life.
private,
several
you know,
illnesses in my life, but never a
businesses
devastator
figuring a
camel
way
who
to
your
take care of
influence in your
themselves.
field, as evidenced by your numerous diplomas and certificates, and your entire staff is really the
I'm
cream of the crop.
thrilled with the outcome of your skills and artistry. It's made such a difference in my life.
Dr. Sussman, Dr. Pogel, and the entire staff at the Center for Cosmetic Dentistry take great pride in providing not only advanced dental care, but extraordinary cosmetic dentistry. They love what they do and have a partnership with their patients toward long-term dental health.
For a bright, confident, beautiful smile.
Thank you, Dr. Sussman.
Thank you, Dr. Pogel.
Thank you.
Change your life, change your smile.
For more information, call the Center for Cosmetic Dentistry at 22 Smile or visit 22-smile.com.
WYSL.
The WYSL store is now open, and your car's crying for an official Voice of Liberty bumper sticker. There's a great selection to help you show your love of God, liberty, and the Constitution. Here are just a few available right now. Shut up, Fauci. Kathy Hokum. No more masking. Open the freaking schools. Scam alert January 6th. No vax mandates. God, please help us. Close the Mexican border. Save America. Stop voting for Democrats. Support the Second Amendment. And your mask doesn't protect squat. But there's more. These are standard weather-resistant bumper stickers guaranteed to get you horn honks and thumbs up in traffic. Choose from other locally made WYSL Voice of Liberty merch too, like tees, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Perfect gifts for any Liberty lover you know. Be sure to check out the exclusive WYSL Mount Worstmore shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting our 4 worst presidents. Guess who's front and center? Be free. Make a statement. Shop the WYSL store at WYSL1040.com.
A free solution.
We are back on a free solution, WYSL, WACK in Newark. And before the break, I saw this come up on the comments from YouTube. The account is Demography Now, and it has a clown as the profile picture. So I don't know if this is a troll account. I don't know who this is, but I welcome them and I thank them for the comment. They say this is totally cringeworthy, worthy. These Lulbert takes are the worst ever. Okay, so I will admit, I just went government bad, real hardcore. But my question is that wrong? Are our highways not controlled by the Fed? Are our food sources not controlled by the Fed? Are everything that we do not controlled by the Fed? Were we not just shut down for 2 years because Dr. Anthony Fauci was the science? Are these Lulbert takes or is this reality? Maybe I lean too hard. I'm not certain. What I do know is the more that you localize, the more that you allow people to do what they want to do, the more that you allow them to collaborate voluntarily, the better society is. And that is proven by America, by the United States, in from its conception until now. There's no coincidence that freedom and allowing people to do what they do, there's no coincidence that coincides with the greatest rise of, well, we're an empire now. My point is, we didn't become a world power at the same time that we allowed freedom and liberty by a coincidence. Those things go together. So the more that you can move towards freedom and liberty and away from government centralized control is always going to be the answer, in my opinion. Not certain if Demography Now feels the same way or not. And that is my answer to that. My rebuttal. That, okay, maybe I'm being crazy libertarian guy. Maybe I'm hating on the government too much. But have they fixed anything that they said they were going to? Have the feds done anything worth anything? Stop sending money in the form. Oh, okay. So we've got Demography Now commenting. Stop sending money in the form of foreign aid to all countries. Not all government is bad. This government is bad. I don't think I said all government bad. I said the government is in bed with the meat processors. They're in bed with the FAA. They're in bed with Ford and Chevy. So I never said all government bad. Localization is a pipe dream, he says, because of one thing, forced diversity. The more diverse we become racially, the less chance of what you speak of. Now, I'm not entirely sure what they mean by this, but maybe it's that we self-select. Maybe that we end up creating colonies of not diverse people. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think localization is a pipe dream at all, because I literally buy my food from a local farmer. You know, and in the winter I have to go to the Hannaford down the street. But in the summer, pretty much all of my food comes from the farmer. That's local. That's localization. I mean, people buy local beer. And also, if we reduce the reliance on stuff shipped in from elsewhere, from California, from Texas, from all that stuff, haven't you localized? If I don't have to buy fruit from Mexico and I can grow apples here in New York State, why is that a pipe dream? Now, maybe it's because it's too expensive to start with. And I would agree. I mean, it is expensive. Organic produce, local produce, all that stuff is expensive. But there are ways to move towards making it more financially feasible, especially with the system that we have now. Prices skyrocketing. By definition, they're becoming more competitive because now that hamburger that used to cost $8 costs $15. Okay, local beef doesn't look so cheap now. So I appreciate the back and forth Demography Now, and I'm not necessarily... I don't think that localization is a pipe dream. That's really the only argument with yours that I disagree with, but I think that we are on the same page as far as most of this stuff goes. So maybe localization doesn't work. But what would you rather have? Would you rather know your congressman? Would you rather know your local official? Would you rather know where your food comes from, or rather know who is producing the things? Or would you rather be reliant on someone that lives 200 miles away, 1,000 miles away? Someone that doesn't know you, will never know you, that you will never be able to get a hold of because they live in some high tower somewhere. Maybe this is Lulbert again. But I believe that holding people accountable, that being as connected as possible to your local environment, that local government is the answer. Again, not all government is bad. Big government is bad. Big business can be bad. Big things are not good because they're not close enough to you. Local is good. Small is good. People making decisions together collaboratively where you can have a feedback loop is good. So smaller is better. And I never said that all government is bad. I said the government we have is bad. So I agree with you there on that point. So that is the solution for today. Get smaller. Get more localized. Care more about what your mayor is doing, about what your New York legislator is doing. Pay attention to them. Pay less attention to Joe Biden. Also, as things become more expensive, maybe there's someone in your area that you can start to get stuff from. Maybe you can start to trade things. Maybe this is a pipe dream. Maybe this neo-feudalist society that we live in is the only way to do things. But I suspect that that is not the case. Demography Now kind of proved my own point. I do know my congressman, he's a shill for Israel like the rest of them. He's full on board with sending them $1 billion. Okay. And how do you fix that? You don't. Because it's controlled by all of the special interests, all of the people with all of the money. The only way you do that is build a parallel system and ignore that guy that wants to send all that money to Israel. You take back the power. You put it in local hands. That's my answer. That's the argument to the whole topic today, is find ways to become more self-reliant, more self-sufficient, more local, smaller government, responsive government, accountable government. That is the answer. Right here on WYSL, WACK, a free solution. My name is Craig Miles. Happy to have spent another Wednesday with you. I will be speaking with you after the break. Be free, not after the break. Next Wednesday, I'll speak to you. Be free and be happy.
Geez, you almost you did what our former noon show host did. I don't know if you've ever heard of Shannon Joyce.
The 2022 Chevy Trailblazer.
Yeah, she would be famous for saying, "When we come back," and Bob Savage would be in this year. No, we won't. It's the end of the show. Yeah. Hey, by the way, one other little tidbit. Our morning show host the other day had said about the same thing about electric cars. You can't